All right, we are back.
Yes, we're back.
Change of Plans podcast. It's Joe and Vinny.
Fucking 2 weeks.
This
in a
guy
row,
looks
bro.
fly, though, doesn't he? Look at his
do.
outfit, man.
I got the drip. I got the Let me just stand up. I got the dicky drip on right now. You know, like it's kind of got that winter fit.
If I have your outfit on next week, I don't want anyone to get like, oh, I like it. I really like
the
it.
full effect of the pants, but I got like these skater, like baggy dicky pants, carpenter pants, and it's the baggy fit. It's a good for winter fit because I don't care about what I'm eating.
You know, it's funny that you say that because I did some shopping recently.
I like the shirt.
And yeah, I feel like right now everything I came across, like even in a large or an XL, everything's like a slim cut for some reason.
Dude, always slim.
It's like, who the fuck? Who asked for that? Who asked for that?
Like,
Nobody.
I want to know who's wearing like the extra slim. Like
an extra large, extra slim.
Like,
what are we doing?
What are we doing, dude? Like, what are we doing? Yeah, I don't. There's stores I just pass in the mall now. Like, I'm not walking into Express.
Yeah.
Like, there's zero things that's gonna fit me in Express, right? J. Crew, maybe. Banana was my favorite store, but I can't. And now I'm into like the skater look this year. Like, my wife gets mad because every season, like, I like to rotate my clothes. So
Makes sense.
I get in my head, I'm like, you know what? This is going to be the vibe this year. And I'm like, because I see like dudes on the internet that are like in really good shape and they're just wearing cool shit. I'm like, you know what? Baggy fit. Like, I almost bought a set of grills the other day for my teeth. Like diamond grills.
Really?
Like just the bottoms. And my wife,
no,
my wife's not a fan. No, she's not a fan.
All right. No, that's good.
But I might do it. anyways. I mean, I think I can. I think I can pull it off. I can pull off anything.
I'd be curious what people think about Vinny getting grills. And do me a favor. It's just because you like Vinny, don't say do it.
I'll do it. And actually, it looked kind of good because I have this like little underbite. So like they will really like be prominent.
Nice.
Like
That's what you want.
I have that underbite where I go to take a bite of a sandwich and all the deli meat gets pulled out. Like, I could never have gone on a date and just get a sandwich because the whole sandwich comes out of my mouth. It's for
the love of God.
It's embarrassing. So
yeah, I could see that.
But I might so I literally now I get nothing but like diamond grills in my social media feed. And they got the custom ones, but I might just get some regular joints and see what I can do. I'm close. I've put it in my cart 3 times this week. So next week,
you're getting there.
We may have
getting
it.
there. I think you should do it.
So how was your week, Joe?
What a week I had. I'm glad it's coming to a conclusion tomorrow. You know what I'm doing tomorrow night? And before you react, I'm gonna go see SmackDown at the XL Center in Hartford.
They still have that?
They still have that. Now, I'm not a wrestling. I used to like wrestling when I was a kid. For 3 years from 2000 to 2003, I watched it Monday and Thursday.
Okay, yeah.
I lived in Maine, and there just wasn't much going on,
Explains a lot, yes.
And
not much.
And it was at the height of like Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock. Yeah. It was just really good stuff. My son likes going to the XL Center. Doesn't matter for what.
Doesn't matter for anything.
Whatever it is. We've gone to Monster Truck Rally. We've gone to a hockey game. We went to AEW. Something else.
They still have monster trucks?
Yeah.
Is it like Gravedigger?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still around.
Still going on. Yeah.
I remember like back when I was a kid, they had like Gravedigger and Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was the rivalry. And my dad used to like tape it on the VHS tapes. You had to plug in the VHS recorder to the TV and record it. That was big back in the day. They're still around.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that only white people do.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's those activities and that.
Yeah.
That's right in there. I got a friend, not to go off topic, but everything he does is like we're on the course and we're golfing. Okay. So we're golfing and he has his vest that looks like he's like pheasant hunting. And I'm like, what are you wearing? Right. And it's all like Brooks Brothers. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, oh, I was just up skiing in Vermont. And I'm like, and then it was like something else. And I'm like, all you do is white stuff. Like the whitest man. And if he's watching, he knows my friend Ryan, nicest guy in the world. But like
white guy Ryan.
The white guy Ryan. You know that is him.
Shout out to Nicole Silva. She likes Vin, but she says no.
Yeah, don't tempt me, Nicole, because I will wear it to court.
That's what a real friend does, Nicole. So yeah, way to step it up. And I appreciate that you bid on that. Somebody had to.
So go back to the XL Center. Sorry, I got off the.
Yeah, no. So we're going to the XL Center. We're gonna go see wrestling, and it's funny because like we went to see AEW, and you know, I feel like if you watched wrestling once, you can predict
what's gonna happen.
Oh yeah. And it was cool because like in AEW, there's a lot of tables and chairs.
Yeah, it's kind of like that high school gymnasium backyard. They use props and it's a little reckless. Yes.
And so they set up a ladder and a table in the middle of the ring. And there's a woman and she's fighting with the bad guy, and her guy's standing in front of a table that's up again. And I said to my son, I go, all right, watch this. That guy's gonna try to climb up that ladder, and the lady's gonna stop him. And he's going to throw the lady off the ladder. That guy's going to catch her and fall into the table and smash through it.
And what happened?
30 seconds later, dude. And this kid's like, oh, my God, how did you know that? And I was like, because I've seen wrestling once. And it's just, you can see it coming a mile away.
I loved wrestling as a kid.
Oh,
like,
yeah, right?
Like Coco Beware and Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
Do you remember Tito Santana?
Yes.
I interviewed Tito Santana 2 years ago.
Still
Can
alive?
I tell you something? Yeah. First of all, guess what? His name's not Tito Santana.
Shocked.
Okay.
I'm shocked.
Second of all, you know how he's like a national hero in Mexico?
Not so much.
He's not Mexican. He lives in Texas too. Born and raised in.
That would never fly now.
On wrestling, they used to say he was from Guadalajara, Mexico, and it turns out Guadalajara is in the United States. And at the time, people in Mexico were like trying to figure out where Guadalajara was, and they just assumed it was a village in Mexico. They just didn't really know.
Wow.
Yeah. And then that kind of kid, like, wait a minute. And then, but he's not.
He's not Mexican at all?
No, it's Colombian.
I almost said it. It's close, though. It's not like a white dude pretending to be Mexican.
Well, you want to laugh. Do you remember Yokozuna?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
What was Yokozuna?
I don't know.
He was a samurai.
Yeah.
Right? He
wore
the
I
diaper.
thought you meant like his nationality.
Well,
samurai is not a nationality.
Well, what's his nationality then? He had the hair in the bun. He was wearing the.
I assumed he was Japanese.
Right, Yokozuna.
Yeah,
from Japan. He's Samoan. He was the 8th Samoan on the roster, and they were like, "We can't have 8 Samoans." And one of the guys looked at him because he was kind of heavier, and they were like, "Pull your hair up." And he pulled his hair up, and they were like. Yep, and if you recall, they paired him off with Mr. Fuji.
Yeah,
just to sell you on the idea that he was Japanese.
But you can get away with that back then. You're not doing that now.
Well, it's funny because I always say this. You know, people hate identity politics. They don't like that focus on it. But do you know what made wrestling so successful in the 80s? Identity politics.
Mm-hmm.
In 1983, the Iron Sheik from Iran was
that
champion.
Guy. Yeah, I like that guy. He had the cool boots.
People liked him until Sergeant Slaughter showed up. And they went back and forth with the belt, and they used to cut them. They were both razor cutters in their tape, and they would slice themselves up. Bloody matches. Hulk Hogan was a kind of a middling wrestler.
Yep.
And he came up with that all-American thing. And Vince McMahon was like, our biggest enemy was Iran. So Madison Square Garden, WrestleMania. Hulk Hogan drops the Iron Sheik, the leg drop, champion of the world.
Yeah.
And then his next big opponent is Nikolai Volkov, because we were in the Cold War. Like, Vince McMahon knew. You mentioned Junkyard Dog before?
Yeah.
Intercontinental champion. Tito Santana, Intercontinental champion. The British Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Coco Beware.
I was just because I loved Coco.
So Vince McMahon knew, right? Like, if I want to attract black fans, and I'll say this guy's ahead of his time. And I don't want to defend Vince McMahon because he's a total scumbag. But when it came to this, he was really smart.
Yeah.
And you could find a wrestler, and you could find one you identified with, whether it was through your heritage or where in the country you lived, or, you know, one of the protected classes in the Constitution. You know what I mean? Like those things, race, creed, color, religion. He zeroed in on all of those, but he also had the presence of mind. Again, it's like Coco Beware, Junkyard Dog. They lost a lot of big matches.
Of course.
But he still made sure that they served their time as champion.
Yeah.
And again, this is why we have identity politics. This idea of representation and stuff. And I know some like DEI or whatever. It's like if you see it and you identify with it, then it becomes possible then.
But I think it was so much easier to identify, especially like as a child, right? Like, we didn't have all these options to watch all of these things, right? Like, we had to watch one TV show at a time.
Right.
Like, I wake up on Saturday morning as a kid, what's on? The WWF. So you didn't have a choice but to watch, and you knew 8 kids down the street were watching the same thing you were, right? Because then you're able to, each kid was kind of forced to identify with whatever we're watching on TV, but we were all watching the same thing.
Yep.
Right. And like, now I know we've talked about this before. It's too much out there. Right. And I think that also takes away from the family time. I remember when I was a kid, my parents would be like, you guys are watching too much TV. We're not doing things as a family, but we were all sitting down watching the same TV show.
Right.
Now you got 8 TVs, 8 different TV shows. Everyone's watching their own shit. Or what's the worst thing for us old people is you're trying to watch a show while your kid is sitting on the TV, phone full volume, and just watching a show. Like, I'm not trying to watch my own show. Like, I stare at him and I'm like, it's so loud, and I'm trying to watch my show, and then he looks at me and he's like, what?
Yeah.
It's infuriating.
It is infuriating. I just read a study on that. They say we can't go watching a movie, like a feature film, couple-hour film, 17 minutes before you start looking at your other screen.
Yeah,
and it gets worse when you break it down into, like, you know, the boomers, the Gen X, the Gen Z, and the whatever betas they are, whatever the hell they're called. They're the worst. But even boomers, it's like 13 minutes, and they're like,
but you don't even realize it. Like it's all the time. It's just so I've been trying when we watch shows, like, it's rare that me and my wife find a show that we like. So I'll go put my phone down somewhere because I'll find myself, I just got to look at one thing. But we've been watching Shrinking on Apple TV. Good show.
What's it about?
A guy who's a shrink. Wow. So it's like centered around 3 shrinks. It has Harrison Ford.
Oh, no kidding.
It has the guy from How I Met Your Mother, the tall dude. I can't remember his name. Great show. But we have been watching that. And I've been watching Alex Cross, which is another one of my favorite books. Nicole Silva's in it today. What we got?
You know what? I'll say again.
Man, Randy Savage.
Solid point. With Captain Lou Albano, they brought in Wendy Rector. Was the women's champion, sort of opposite Hulk Hogan, and she at some points was actually managed by Cyndi Lauper. So he had the presence of mind. You want to become part of pop culture, get the biggest pop star in the world, which Cyndi Lauper was at the time, right? She becomes a manager. They actually pulled the fabulous Moolah out of retirement and gave her the belt so that Wendy Rector could beat her and become the champion.
Dude, you like
that crazy?
Like the facts that you just come to the table.
I know things. I've always thought it was brilliant. And by the way, Macho Man Randy Savage, you know what I love the most about that guy? It's a lot of the stuff he did over the last
wife.
Huh?
Elizabeth? Remember?
Oh, she was amazing.
She's fantastic.
Yeah. I remember when he was on Arsenio Hall, and Arsenio Hall asked the Macho Man if he ever cried. And he was like, oh, yeah, like the Macho Man cries. Takes a real man cries. Oh, yeah. And I remember that, and I thought, you know what? Yeah, fucking right on, dude. Guys can be sensitive. Why you got to act like they're not? The Macho Man said we could do it.
No, I don't cry, bro.
I do. I cry all the time.
You look like a cry.
Oh, my God.
You have a crying face.
You know what makes me, you know why I cry, though? You know what makes me cry? Sports stuff. Acts of sports. So there's I'm a UFC fan.
No,
right?
I didn't know that.
Okay, I'm a big UFC fan. And there's a guy, his name's Max Holloway, one of the best fighters.
I know him. Yeah.
All right, you know Max Holloway. Yep. He's fighting Brian Ortega. And he actually fractured Brian Ortega's orbital bone, and Brian Ortega was out for 18 months. He was out recovering. Yeah. Put your hands up for a minute. Max was just fucking lighting him up, right? And he throws the overhand right, and he connects. And they're still squared off. And he grabs Brian Ortega's hands, and he holds him up, and he takes his hand, and he shows him how to block the punch in the middle of the fight. It's like,
why?
Because he was beating his ass so bad, he felt bad. And I saw that, and this guy gave this guy a fight lesson in the middle of a championship fight in the UFC. What an amazing bit of
I'm not crying at that.
All right, I'll give you another one. Do you watch? Are you a UFC guy a little bit? All right.
Yeah.
Justin Gaethje.
Yes.
Fights Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yes.
You know the story?
Yes.
So Justin Gaethje's a tough guy, and all week he was like, "I will not tap out." And Khabib Nurmagomedov, who is, and I love this, he is a Russian and a Muslim. And he is one of the most beloved figures in the sport, which is why I always say, I think sports transcends all the garbage, nonsense, political crap in the world. If people could love a Russian Muslim as much as they loved Khabib, you know what I mean? I think we could all get along. Anyway, Justin said he wouldn't tap, and his parents were there, and they were ringside. And so Khabib, right, does the takedown, and he's about to roll him into an armbar. Now, if you don't tap out during an armbar, it's where they bend your elbow all the way back. They're going to break your elbow. And if it gets broken bad enough, you know, and he's a fighter, so you know, a puncher, Gaethje, so he needs his elbows to work. So as Khabib starts to put him in the what do you call it? I just forgot the name of it. Oh my God, the armbar. Yeah. He remembers Justin won't tap, and he would say afterwards, because he ended up like spinning around, and he put him in a chokehold, and he put him out in seconds. And he said, I didn't want to hurt him in front of his parents. And two things came to mind. Number one, I mean, right, the sportsmanship there. But then also the excellence that this guy had. Like,
I get all of that.
Hold on.
But I just need to know. Like,
this
story is taking forever.
It's making me cry.
Why?
It's choking me up. That's a beautiful thing.
It's
a beautiful bit of humanity. I love that.
No, it isn't.
Yes.
No.
You want to hurt him in front of his mom and dad.
So you cry to that?
Yeah.
That is awful.
Yeah.
No.
Disney films, they all make me cry.
No,
every one of them. Even that stupid one with the elements made me cry at the end.
I got a text from my friend. And we have like this group text, and it's like 2 other divorce attorneys. She's like, I feel bad. I think I made my client cry. I was like, I don't even have a box of tissues in my office. And I'm a divorce lawyer.
Yeah.
I stare at them while they cry at me. And I just stare.
Are you a robot?
Yeah.
Nothing makes you sad?
I
don't cry at sad things. I cry at things that I find beautiful.
Oh my God. You're so bad. I think we discussed this last week, but I've teared up maybe 3 times in my life.
What was your most recent crying? Oh, it was the
football. It's the football things. Yeah, but other than that, I mean, I'm such an awful person. Another thing about my grandmother had died, my mother's mom, my grandmother, and we're at the funeral. My grandmother was old, right? Like, it's not like a shock. So my mom was upset. She's at the cemetery, and
right?
She's crying.
She lost
and I'm
her
like,
mother. Yeah,
and I'm like, Mom, could you get it together? Like, we knew this was gonna happen. And I looked at my mom, and I am bad. I guess I'm a bad son sometimes, but I was just because in my head, I'm very pragmatic. I'm like, well, this happens, and then this happens, and we can't control it, right?
Yeah, I'm like that too, but I let out a little cry first.
Yeah, no, I don't. I
get all the mushies out of the way.
You know, like I've cried a couple times when my friends passed, like someone died and it was close to me and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I'm not very. I have to work on that, I think.
Yeah, how could you not? Oh, I love that kind of stuff. Things like that, yeah, like warms my heart.
Yeah, I felt this is how nice my wife is, right? So I was on trial for a week and a half, right? So I don't even have to say allegations anymore because I didn't win the trial, but it's a sex assault trial. Client was accused of raping a 16-year-old. So, long story short, there was a sleepover with his daughter. Things happened, right? So, I spent the past week and a half.
Wait, that wasn't his testimony, was it?
No, it was.
Tell us what happened. Well, there was a sleepover with my daughter. Things happened.
It was kind of like a movie. There was like the police interview where, as God is my witness, the truth will set me free. Denies having sex. Says, yes, take my DNA, all of the things he shouldn't have done.
Yeah.
And so the way the law works, right? So the state charges my client with sexual assault and the second physically helpless, meaning that this person was too drunk to consent, right? Because the state made an allegation she was drunk. There may have been some cell phone video, which may have given an indication that she was inebriated. But the beautiful Supreme Court of the state of Connecticut set the standard for physical helplessness. So basically, there was a young lady with cerebral palsy, and the guy
story's getting worse.
It gets worse. Like there's 2 cases, and they're absolutely horrible cases. And the judge in my case put it on the record like that's a crazy standard, right? So the first one is she had cerebral palsy. And the guy got convicted of the sexual assault, got overturned because the Supreme Court said she could have grunted or bit the person.
No way.
So she was not physically helpless. Second one, a woman got assaulted in an ambulance while being strapped to a gurney. And because she didn't use her voice, it wasn't sexual assault. So when I'm presenting my case.
Wait, what was it? Just
sex.
Just hanging out?
Yeah. Just sex. So my argument, if you're looking at it from a lawyer mind, so my closing argument, right? So we go to closing, and that's what I'm good at. Like this is what I do. State gets up there. So the way it works, state goes, I go, and state gets the finish, right? They get 2 shots at the apple. They start off with a PowerPoint. And before we were getting started, they're like, "Where's your notes?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't use notes." Like they have their written speech in huge font with PowerPoint.
You just spit.
So I go up with a blank notepad and I write sexual intercourse on it. And then I just start. Right? So the way I took it was, everyone always asks me, how does my brain work? Right? Like I have a very specific way of looking at things and the way I think. You know, as an attorney, like I process things in a certain way. And it's crazy that you're asking these 6 jurors to be an attorney, right? Like I've been doing it for 20 years. I'm trained at it, but like and I pointed out at the jury and I thought it was clever, right? I was like, I knew I had a physicist. I'm like, I have a physicist. I have a retired teacher. I have a guy who's a beer distributor. I have someone on the jury who's in a mock trial in 8th grade. Like I'm going Rain Man. I'm remembering all these facts about 8 individuals I don't know. And I'm like, let me walk you through my brain on how I'm analyzing this case. Almost like a stream of consciousness. I killed it, bro. I killed it. I was like, there's no way they can meet their burden because they couldn't. Right. And so I sit down, state goes again, and the state said this one line and I just knew it. I'm like, yo, I am smoked. So the state attorney, and she was a sleeper, by the way. Like I didn't expect it from her. She's like, well, you know, so-and-so is collecting a social security check. You know, this person's getting off the school bus. And I'm like,
That's good.
So it goes to jury. And mind you, when I'm on criminal trial, everything's shut down. I can't check my emails. I can't respond to text messages. I have to be locked in. And so we get done with closing. It's 4:00. And I always have a bad feeling about late afternoon going to the jurors because they're like, dude, I'm not trying to come back here tomorrow.
Right.
So it's 4:00. I'm like, all right, we're going to have to come back tomorrow. Like, there's no way. It's way too much stuff. 40 minutes later, they're like, we have a verdict. I'm like, how did you even pick a 4-person in 45 minutes? And it didn't go well. So they came back guilty.
It sounds like they spent about 40 minutes picking a foreman.
Yeah, and you know the state's like, and the state was like, every time you were talking, they're like, "Damn, that's a good point. Damn, that's a good point." And I'm looking at them, I'm like, and I pointed out to the jury, and I'm like, "Listen, you know what's creepy? A 61-year-old man having sex with a 16-year-old, but it's not illegal, right? It's not. It's not a crime." Right? It's the age of consent. So in my lawyer brain, I'm like, well, that's obvious, right? Like, yeah, it's creepy, but it's not illegal. You know, and they were like, go ahead and appeal it. So that was a rough go. That was you know, because like you get an offer, you reject the offer.
Why? Because let me ask you this, by the way, about this Supreme Court ruling. What if you say to the person, if you say a word, I will kill you?
Well, then that's different.
That's different.
Yeah, because then that's by
like
force.
A coercion.
Yeah. So like the way this case played out, they had evidence that this person was inebriated at 12:30. Right. They don't have any evidence that she was inebriated at the time. There's a rough timeline, but they don't really know when it happened. But shortly thereafter, her boyfriend picks her up and he testifies she seemed fine and talked normal. Right? I'm like, I got some hay to make. Right? She admitted she didn't say anything. Her eyes were open. She was conscious. Like, hey, like the reality is the onus isn't on my client to make sure she's consenting or not. Like, I'm not a mind reader. That's the way the law works. I know you're smirking because everyone does when terrible. I tell them this thing, because it's completely horrible, but that's the way the law works. So, like, I get so bent out of shape, right? Because it's not, when I tell people, it's like, we're not having this conversation in Joe's basement, right? Like, it's a different burden. But, you know, so you spend all this time, and then in like 20 minutes, it just goes up, and then you just walk away. Like, you spent all this time in court with all these people, and it's, and so we go to the bar, me and my associate, and it was a rough one. It was a rough one because I don't like to lose, and I'm like, how could they not get it? Right? Like, I get it from, like, if I'm not a lawyer, I definitely get it. That's why I'm like, hey, if I'm not wearing this suit and we're in a locker room, this is a different conversation. Right. But then I started focusing on, all right, then I started replaying everything back. Would I do anything different? Absolutely not. Did I do what I had to do? Absolutely. Like, I went through the process, and I'm like, I enjoyed the process of it. Right. Like, for me, it's that gamemanship, and, you know, I loved my closing argument. Like, people were like talking about it, and like, so I think even in an L, like, I got the W because I'm like, all right, I still could do it. Like, I still know how to do the process.
Your client doesn't think so, but I could see where you see the silver.
Well, he's not listening to this podcast right now, so we don't have to worry about either. So now I have to go and do, like, the sentencing in February, right? But, like, so I always tell people, it's cool to be a lawyer until you have to be a lawyer.
Do you still bill this guy?
No, he's going to owe me money that I'm never going to see again. But I did get a check, and I ran to the bank first thing this morning before that family canceled it.
Oh my God. Oh, that's hilarious.
You know, I think also too, you get caught up in, like, well, I could convince them, right? Like, my ego is like, they're gonna hear me and they're gonna like me so much. Like there's so much thought that goes into it. People don't realize that. Like, so I had my associate who's like 8 feet 4 inches. He's ginormous. It's Giraffe Boy. He's just huge.
Is that his name?
That's what I call him. It's nice. I'm gonna get sued. And then I put him. So, like, they had to look through me, look through my associate to get to my 61-year-old client. Right? There was a lot of thought that went into my stuff that I did. And it was crazy. Like, yesterday was supposed to be the last day of trial close, power outage in Hartford. So they have to switch courthouses. And then we went from this, like, little courtroom to this mega courtroom. And the state attorneys were like, oh my God, we've never even been in this big of a courtroom. And I've already been here. But there was judges that haven't seen me forever. They're like, we've never seen Vin give a closing argument. Like, all this stuff going on. I'm like, I had the mojo. I remember I woke up in the morning. I'm asking some butt naked dude in the locker room. I'm like, yo, silver watch or gold watch? He's like, bro, I don't even know what your name is. My wife's like, why do you talk to people?
Why do you talk to people?
Because, you know why? I'll tell you why. Because I thought about this idea for my closing. I had an idea the night before.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Then I'm talking to the naked fat dude in the gym. And I'm like, he's like, I just don't understand how attorney brains work. You know, right? So I hear that. I hear in my wife's head that I tend to talk to people like they know what I know. Right? Like, anytime, it's my worst part as an attorney. I talk to people during my consultations like, you should already know this stuff. Like, how come you don't know it? Then I'm like, oh yeah, you don't. So that's where it clicked. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to walk them through how my brain works. And that's kind of how I developed my closing. And I would have never thought of that if I didn't have the conversation with the big fat naked dude in the gym.
Did you mention the big fat naked guy in the gym in your closing?
I mentioned the gym. I just left the guy in the gym, but I left the fat naked dude out.
That would have been funny.
But yeah, so it was tough. It was, and then I had to go and tell myself I had to switch my brain back into, I got to work tomorrow and I got to get back to all my other shit. But it's crazy, man. Like, it's a crazy life that I have with that stuff. Right. But then,
yeah, that's wild.
And but on the flip side, like I go home and I'm so grateful for my house. Like I'm so grateful that I have a normal life.
Yeah.
Like I just like I was listening to something on the way here, and it was, you know, I'm not worried about like how long I live, just the memories I have and the boxes I'm checking. Right. And like I was like, what boxes do I need to check? Right. Like, you go through that week of stuff, you watch some dude get hauled off to prison, and you go home and you're like, all my boxes are checked. And then you do a podcast with your partner who's playing on his phone while
no,
I'm
you know
pouring
what?
my heart out. You want to know what makes me cry, Joe?
I'm trying to, you know what I'm trying to find out?
This makes me cry. You checking your fantasy football.
I'm not,
being
you know what
vulnerable.
I'm trying to see about that, about the court case.
There's nothing on the news, dude.
How's that not on the news?
It's just another guy.
That's not on the news?
Dude, I got a guy. I'm not even making this. No, let me tell you this, because I'm not, you're gonna think I made this story up. This is how crazy people are. New guy gets arrested for possession of child pornography. Parents call me, hey, he's got court tomorrow. He's getting arraigned. That means he's sitting on like a $250,000 bond. Dude ain't getting out. I go meet him in lockup, right? I'm sitting on one side, piece of glass. There he is, the accused, allegedly, looks at me. He's like, hey, Vin. I'm like, hey, so-and-so. Because I had represented him like 7 years ago when he was 18. He's like, Vin, I was thinking I'd make a good like legal assistant.
No.
And I'm looking at him. I'm like, you know what side of the glass you're on, and you're facing child pornography charges, and you think that like, hey, yeah, you're gonna walk out of this courthouse and interview at my office.
I could look at child porn on your computers at work.
But
if you hire
I just
me.
spit all over you, by the way.
Yeah,
I did. Like that went everywhere. But like, I just looked at him and I'm like, the lack of awareness on some of these people is so scary. It's like the people who are like free Luigi. Right? Like this, like that. This is where like people are acting like this guy Luigi is like the real life Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Like he's just batshit crazy.
Yes.
Out here carving shit into bullets like it's like the medieval times and just sniping someone out. And then world's dumbest criminal gets caught with all the shit.
Yeah.
Like you could have thrown it in any ocean. Anywhere.
Yeah, he could have thrown that untraceable gun. He could have left it on the fucking ground.
People, and so they were going through like the comments, like they're like, need an alibi, call me. The people's champ, like a GoFundMe account.
Yeah.
Like, and this dude had everything. His family's just gangster rich.
That parka he has sold out.
Dude, that book bag's probably gonna sell out.
Yeah.
Like, it's insane, and that's where we're at in society. Like when you're just like, yeah, let's just haul off and start shooting CEOs. Hey, maybe the guy's a dirtbag. I don't know. If I was making $10 million a year, it's a pretty good shot I may be a dirtbag.
Yeah. Do you remember Kyle Rittenhouse?
No. Why does that name sound familiar?
The kid that shot the people in Minnesota during the riots.
No.
White kid.
Oh,
fried.
Yeah.
They took him to Burger King.
Yeah.
And so, right, Kyle Rittenhouse could not have gotten any luckier in that the first guy that he shot, if you recall, had attempted to hit Kyle over the head with a skateboard. And he turned and he shot the guy, caught him like mid, and he killed him. And as it turned out, that guy he killed was a pedophile. So people were like, yeah, he got what he deserved. And it's like, well, I don't know that that's the way we want to dish out justice in America.
I mean, it was a great lucky shot.
Yeah.
But like, listen, if you're a pedophiler, listen, I mean, and listen, I have my office is getting quite upset with me because apparently I am the bee's knees of kiddie porn representatives.
Someone has to be.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's a crazy
Busted with child porn at work? Call Vin.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Don't open it twice. But but like I think like I go home and no matter what happens, like I'm good. Like because nothing's gonna get worse than that, right? Like so let me go back because I was telling you I was upset yesterday. I get home and this is why like my wife literally fell from heaven. Like she comes home, she's talking about, are you okay? And talking to me, let me breathe a little bit. And then she's like 40 minutes later, she's like, I got some bad news. And I'm like, and one of her friends has a brain tumor they just found. Like literally, like Wednesday, she was hanging out with her, and now she's in the ER. And she's actually having surgery right now. So my wife went and talked to her today before the surgery. And I'm like, why did you wait to tell me? Right? Like, I'm mad because my client, who is now a convicted sex assaulter, is going to jail, and you're just holding that in.
Yeah.
And then it just like hits you. Like, you just never know.
That didn't make you cry?
No. So I will say I'm sad about it. Right? I'm not a crier, but I'm sad. I can feel bad for the family. Just a good family. I texted the husband, but I really felt bad. But my wife, I mean, the feelings my wife has for her friends and the pain that they feel, she genuinely feels.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get a little jealous of it because I just don't have it. I don't know why, but like she really she carries it. But yeah, it's crazy, man. Young, like you just don't know. And all of a sudden, like now she's under the knife. Like it's crazy to me. Like I couldn't imagine. So I think when I see that happen, and now that I have like that family, like that, you check that box.
Yeah.
Right. Like my box 6 years ago wasn't like, man, I want a kid. I need to check that box off. But like now that I'm so glad I have that box because I have this like little family. Yeah, it makes you take a step back and think. But my wife is it's crazy.
You're a real trooper for being here tonight.
Why?
Because your thoughts are clearly with your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it does. Like it bothered. Like yesterday, I will tell you.
Yeah. That's how he's feeling. He's sad inside, and that's why he's talking fast.
No, but then I have to catch myself. So yesterday I was talking to her, my wife's upset about it. And I'm like, listen, she's at the hospital. She's at the place she needs to be. They caught it. Don't worry about it yet. Like this is how my brain works. It's like a step-by-step process.
God, you're so dumb. I do the same.
Like and then I know like
my wife hates that. She says,
yeah,
I don't need to be reassured right now. And it's like, oh, I thought I'd reassure you. What am I, an idiot?
Yes, like that is
yeah.
And as I was doing it, I just caught myself and I'm like, and she didn't say it, but I know that's what she's thinking. She always says, I don't need you to solve the problem. I just need you to listen.
Oh my God.
Like,
just let us solve it.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
But I will say, like, I do get a little jealous though. Maybe you and my wife can hang out and cry together. I just I do. I get jealous. She just wears it, and I'm just like in my head. It's just I can't shut my brain off. I can't do it. Right? Like, and it's with everything.
Also, when people come at you with a scenario, it's because they're like, "Hey, listen, I may have had sex with a 16-year-old who might have been drunk. What do I do?" And right away, you got to start the plotting and the scheming. So that is. And it's got to be hard for you when your wife's like, "Hey, I'm having a problem.
Yeah,
I just want you to listen to it."
But like the fact that like she's like so like unselfish and just lets me rant about dumb shit.
See, that would make me cry.
And then I didn't cry, but I felt bad.
That's a beautiful thing.
It is. Like it is.
That
like,
touches my heart.
I don't know if I could have done that. I would have been like, well, like, enough of about your dumb day. I got a better story to tell you because that's another bad habit of mine, right? Like, I'm just like, my brain works so fast. I'm already like, yeah, but my story is way better. So let me do it. I mean, I'm sure you experienced that on this podcast. Like, sometimes, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck why you're crying about a UFC fight. Just get to the end of it.
Beautiful.
It's not. Like, my wife's beautiful. That story was beautiful.
Do you know what I love? You know what my favorite thing is?
Butterscotch.
Humans.
How do you say humans? Is it? I say humans.
Humans.
You say the human?
Humans.
All right.
Humans, like humans.
I do. What's your favorite thing about humans?
All right. So I studied like history and ancient history. That's like one of my favorite things. And one of the things they have evidence now that humans have buried the dead for probably about 80,000 years that we're aware of.
Okay.
So when we were still kind of cavemanish, they already knew. And there's evidence in a 7 million year old humanoid. Okay,
what's a humanoid?
It wasn't a Homo sapien. It was like Homo erectus, I think. It's like 7 million years old. But they found an older lady who had osteoporosis really bad. And she was like infirm for like 6 months, which means somebody was taking care of her. You're talking about before we actually had humans. That was already there, like that you would take care of your mom in her old age, or maybe that was whatever. But again, that inherent, like, we got to stick together. Civilization launched because of migrating groups would like get together in the winter and have festivals and shit. And that kind of began the idea of communal living and then farming, and that led to podcasts.
Yeah, but then it's sex. We're going away from that.
Yeah, well, we're fucking it all up because people don't know their history. That's the problem. And
people just think they're operating in like their own little snow globe.
You were talking about something earlier, and I just thought of it again. This idea of, right, there's BET and there's Bravo, right, and there's very designed programming now
that separate all of us.
Yes, right. It's like to find something to watch with your wife is really hard because what are we both into where there's programming about that? There's not.
No, there's programming for certain sex of people and this, that, and
you and I could easily find something that we would like to watch together
for sure,
and you would struggle to find something for you and Claudia to watch.
Probably, like yes, because and by chance sometimes we fall into a show, but yes,
right. And when you do, it's like you fucking eat it up because it's like, oh my god, this is something we both enjoy. It's great.
She's the worst because she'll watch an episode without me. Like it's terrorish type shit.
My wife does that sometimes.
It's the one of the like I won't even be home. I'll walk in, and I'm like, it's the rudest thing you could do.
And then she like, why don't you watch it tonight? And I'll go to bed early, and then we'll catch the next one.
No, she'll be like, I just watched it again, or I didn't know you really liked it.
Oh, you can't watch it again.
But then she'll get.
I don't want you to know what happened.
But then she'll get mad because I'll just pick it up 3/4 of the way through, and I'll just tell her what happened. She's like, "How did you know?" I'm like, it's not that hard. It's really basic concepts in all of these shows. But she does it all the time.
They don't get that, do they?
No.
They don't get that. Like,
it's just patterns to all of this
stuff. My God.
It's not like I'm really smart. I'm like, it's just that it's all like a pattern.
I remember when I watched The Sixth Sense, and at the end, people were like, "Oh my god!" And I was like, "You didn't know he was dead?"
Like,
so obvious.
Like, I might be walking past a show. It's like 30 seconds, and I'm like, "That person's gonna die in 20 minutes," and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "And that person dies in 20 minutes," and I'm like, "That's weird."
You thought Bruce Willis's wife was blowing him off for a year? That's what you thought was happening? He's dead. Get shot. Unbelievable.
Yeah, but it is too much. There's too much on TV. Like it's too much.
But program is very predictable. It really is.
Like,
and again, it's geared towards somebody. And I'm glad you said about, because my wife is the same thing. It's like, don't you guys understand the prepackaged premise here?
Yeah.
They're just kind of following the same basic plot and everything else you guys like. They stick Mark Ruffalo in there somewhere, and it's a movie.
But that's why I like books. So I used to read a lot, and then I stopped reading a bunch. But my wife is like, I've never seen someone other than probably both my grandmothers read more than my wife. My wife reads a ton. And so now I started reading. And that's what I love about reading. Like, you don't get that predictability, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm into big like character books where I could just like start from when like book one and watch the character grow. So I've been reading a ton. My wife makes fun of me now because I'm like, I'm gonna go read. She's like, you really like the book? And then sometimes I laugh when I'm reading a book. Ever laugh when you're reading a book? Because see, like, I think it's weird you cry with the UFC. It's 100% weird when I'm like reading in a book and I'm like, ha! Or like I get excited and I'm like, yes.
This is a little bit weird because I like to read. I'm a reader too. And I read a book from Christopher Hitchens, who is like a renowned atheist, and he had passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And I had not heard of him until he was dead.
Yep.
Okay. And I read the book, and I'm like, oh, I should look this guy up. And there's a whole bunch of videos, him debating people, and he's British.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh.
You didn't hear that British voice?
No. Yes. And it's like, sometimes he said shit, and as I thought back on it, it's like, oh, because he's British.
But
I went back and I reread it,
and it's different
in the British accent in my head. Yes, and it's like it's like it all kind of came together. Yeah, I love that about books.
Yeah, like, but it allows your like freedom, right? Like it tells you a story, but you could get two people read the same book and get something different out of it, right? So, but I'm a big fiction guy. Like I don't read to learn stuff. Like I could read multiple books at once too. It drives my wife crazy. Like I read a lot. Yeah.
I'm in 3 books right now.
Yeah. So it really depends on my mood.
Yeah.
Like what I'm trying to do, or if it's like a self-help or a history book or like a fiction, right? Like, but it really depends on my point in the day too. Like if I'm shutting it down at night, I don't really want to think about things as much as I just want to be entertained. But if I'm in my morning and I know what my learning zone is, then I'm going to want to read this book, or I'm going to want to hear this podcast. And I'll have a bunch going on, and I may finish it. I may not. I may come back to it later on and pick up another book.
Yeah.
But I like Do you like Audible books? Do you do Audibles?
I don't. My wife actually has purchased me some, and I haven't done it. But I should. It seems like that would be.
Well, like I think if you're in your car, like for me, like. I don't think I could sit in a lawn chair and listen to it, because then for me it's kind of weird. Yeah. But I'm in the car all the time, so like I'll just listen to an audio book. Like, and I like the ones where like the author's reading it, right? Like, so one of the best ones I read was or I listened to on Audible was Green Lights, the Matthew McConaughey book.
Yeah,
and it's Matthew McConaughey reading.
Nice.
So like it's like your heart's going 100 miles an hour because he's talking in that Matthew McConaughey cadence.
Right.
Like, and I thought it was a great book. I don't think it would have been as effective for me if I just read it, but having that like person, especially him, like it's his cadence. Like I wish I was Matthew McConaughey. That guy's living his life. But yeah, so that's been my jam.
My husband's a problem solver too. It's like Odd Couples. I'm telling you, man, it's like you can never quite guess what the wife is looking for in any given situation. Books are always better. I read them before watching one made to movie. Yeah, I think that's important. And it's funny. It's rare. You could tell a bullshitter. Okay, when somebody says, "Oh yeah, no, I read the book. I just thought the movie was better." It's like, lies. You're a fucking liar. You didn't read the book.
All right.
The book is never. The movie's never better than the book.
Never.
Ever.
It
can't be, because it's adapted from the book. Typically, the person who wrote the book has little to nothing to do with the actual movie.
What do you think the closest one is?
Probably Godfather.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's a pretty straight adaptation. It's still a little, you know, some of the flashbacks and stuff, you know, is a little like not sequenced or whatever. But yeah,
I would go Pelican Brief.
Oh, that's one of my man. I tell you right now, I had that on VHS.
Yeah,
that's such a great movie.
Yep.
Oh shit, Vin.
Yeah.
Did you do this on purpose?
No. I just told you to pick a card.
Oh.
We're picking a card for people who are not watching. So what we do, I just want to explain for our listeners, our audio people.
Oh, yeah. Because it's funny. I'm going to hold the question up to the screen.
But the people who listen to
audio
the podcast,
people.
So we have a box called Substance, and it's just a bunch of meaningful questions. You pull a card on a variety of topics, and it kind of jumpstarts conversation sometimes. So this is what we're doing for the people who are just listening in their car.
This is a good one. What is your most toxic trait?
Man, you're going first on that one.
I'll tell you right now what mine is. It's a lack of time management. In as much that, as you know, I have a very packed day.
Yes.
It's generally minute by minute, and I allot myself travel time that corresponds to the actual travel time. And so typically if this thing runs 5 minutes later, everything's fucked for the rest of the day. I
would hate you.
Oh, it's really bad. But here's another thing. Sometimes I don't eat during the day because I haven't factored in I'm going to do this and then this and then this, and I don't have time to eat. And that's not good. It's just like poor planning on my part. But I get all my shit done, you know?
Yeah.
And I end up having to sacrifice a lot because I don't allot myself any wiggle room. A little bit of traffic, I'm donezo.
Yeah, that would drive me nuts.
That's why I told you, I go to work super early because I want to avoid fucking up. But yeah, that's my worst thing.
That's like I don't have that problem. I have the opposite problem. I will be somewhere 45 minutes early and sit in a parking lot.
Yeah,
because just in case something happens.
Yeah.
So I do waste time that way. I think we already touched on it today. My probably worst trait is
not crying.
No. That's a good one though.
Yeah.
It's definitely good. I think my brain moves too fast. Like my brain moves on before it should in a conversation. So usually, like, people are having conversations with me, and I might have been done 10 minutes before they were. Like, in my head, I've already knew where the conversation was going to go. Like, I've seen it already, and I'm on to whatever the next part of the conversation is going to be. So I think it's I have to slow down, and I'm really trying to make a conscious effort to slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like you're like minute to minute, like I tend to be like very, just say for example, time, right? Like I gotta be done with my cardio by 6:30 because I gotta be out here. And when people mess with that, like I just shut my brain off and I stop listening. Instead of now I try to take like, hey, you know what? It's okay if I'm 5 minutes behind because I gained 5 minutes of a conversation that maybe I learned something I wouldn't have, like talking to the fat guy who was naked in the locker room.
Yeah.
If I didn't take the time out to listen, maybe my closing argument wouldn't have been that good. Or maybe it just would have stayed the same and my guy'd be home tonight. I don't know. But it's just, I know it's happening because I see it happening. Someone's talking to me and I'm like, could you just get done with it? Like when someone's talking to me about how they cry about the UFC and they're telling me about the whole fight. And I'm just like, tell me why you cried, Joe. And like literally, and I'm just going to be honest, you were telling the story and you were in it and you're such a passionate storyteller. And all my brain was doing was like, get to the fucking point, Joe. Like my brain shut off and I'm like, I want to know why you cried so we can move on to the next topic. And it's horrible because I did it with a friend live on a podcast.
Yeah.
My toxic trait came out during our podcast.
Recognizing the problem is the first step in addressing it.
Yes. That's what they
Nicole,
taught me in coaching school.
I think all the ladies have this problem. Well, a lot of ladies have this problem. Is Nicole a mother?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Taking care of myself last. Can't say no. Take in too much. Yeah.
That is.
I know so many moms that are like that.
Well, Nicole will tell you too. Like Nicole have had these conversations where I tell people you have to make yourself the number one priority, and I think that really hits with moms.
Yeah.
Like yes, dads have a big role in all this stuff. But let's keep it real. Like mothers' roles are very different. Like hold a different importance in the household, right? And people always are like, well, I sacrificed. You'll hear it all the time in my office. I sacrificed for 18 years, right? Because they think that's what they're supposed to do, not realizing that you're showing your kids that, like, hey, you don't have to take care of yourself, right? Like, I'm going to put all my stuff on the back burner, not knowing that these kids would rather see their mother happy. So to take time out to make yourself the number one priority, because if you're good, then everything else falls in line. Like, I have a bad day, my office has a bad day, my wife's not going to have a great time when I get home, and the shit just trickles down. But when I'm good, everyone's good. Like when I come home and my wife had a great day, right? Like, in her attitude and her spirit is just like, oh, she had a great day. No matter how bad my day was, mine just got that much better, right? So like it's the airplane and the mask, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. Yeah,
it's exactly the same thing. As I tell parents, it's okay to take care of yourself, because once you're good, then you're in a spot where you could take care of everybody else. So it's not. I don't know if that's a toxic trait, because it's a good quality that you're an unselfish person, but I think you just got to be okay with being a little bit selfish at times.
Lessons learned here. Number one, most importantly, and I swear by this, and I think it's important, and all of my kids do this, and Vinny does it, which impresses me. But read. You should read.
Yeah.
Everybody, I mean, even if you just 6 months to read whatever. I read sometimes like a chapter at a time.
Yeah.
Like Vinny, I got 3 books going, and it's all about mood. I mean, one of them is about Palestine and its history. Another one is about an octopus.
You know what you got to do, like, before you even get to the third one, you need to explain what mood you're in when you feel like reading about an octopus.
Not giving a fuck.
Okay, so what mood are you in
when I'm reading? All right? So if I'm reading, I'm looking for, and I'm probably already thinking like geopolitically about stuff, and I'm about halfway through this this Palestine book, and it's really interesting, and there's a lot of info to take in too.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So I'll read a chapter, maybe 2 chapters, and like try to process all that stuff. So I got to really be focused and like thinking. But sometimes my wife will be like, hey, why don't you grab a book? We'll go sit out in the yard and read.
That's the octopus. Okay.
Yeah. I might rip through it. I might only read a chapter and, kind of doze off.
What's the third one?
The third book is...
It's a coloring book.
No. The third book...
This is going to be good.
Is... Under the Banner of Heaven. It's about Mormon murders. It's about how fucked up the Mormons are. Under the Banner of Heaven, and there's a movie, by the way, and it's actually pretty good. But I'm reading the book.
I might have to check this, being a former Mormon of myself.
Oh,
I might have to borrow the book.
I'll let you borrow it. I literally did just finish that one. I just finished it. It is, my wife had read it and was like, oh, I think you'll really like this.
Oh, we're going to have an episode on it.
Actually, yeah. So I actually just picked up a book about how right-wing media has destroyed American society. I forget the name of it. I just picked it up. Well, where was I? Oh, I was in P-Town in July, and my wife and I went to a bookstore, and yeah, I saw this book, and it was screaming like, you gotta. I haven't even. I think I just read maybe the first chapter of it.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe we'll start doing. We'll like pick a book, like read a chapter a week, and then we do a little chapter review. A book review.
Are you talking about like a
book club,
like a book club,
like a podcast book club,
a book club for dudes.
We're just two dudes reading books.
Yeah, I like it. Happens. I think that's great. Again, because listen, I think it's important that you read, and especially when you get older, if you want to keep your brain sharp. All right, we got to wrap this in a minute, but I've been playing Wordle. You ever play Wordle?
No.
My wife does the New York Times Wordle. She subscribes to the New York Times, so she plays all the old ones too. You know what Wordle is?
No.
So it's like a 5-letter word. It's all blanks, and you get 5 guesses. So maybe you type in the word point, and if you get any of the letters in the right place, they turn green. If it's wrong, they turn black. It's out. Don't use that letter again. And you have to guess what the word is.
It's not my cup of tea.
You got to use your brain. The word today, by the way, if you haven't done your Wordle today, it's vying, VYING, which, again, I played out all the vowels, and it was blank, blank, INT. Blank, blank, ING. And I'm thinking, it's a letter that would go in front of an I.
Mm.
But after it didn't make any sense, and then I saw the Y, and I'm like, "Ow!" That's the only other, because you remember, Y's are sometimes vowels.
Yeah, I don't have the patience for it.
But I've been playing this Wordle game, and my wife is like a Wordle nut, and every day I did it in 4. What did you do it in it? And I'm always like, I got it in 1 guess sooner than she did.
Oh, it's because of the reading. This is what I tried to tell my stepson. He doesn't read at all. And
you need to read or do word games. It's good for your brain, especially if you want to stave off things like Alzheimer's when you get older.
Or just talk to another person. Like he is a very smart kid. But
young people have to. I mean, look,
it's dude.
It's funny. You walked in, and I said to my son, "I go, what do you think of Vinny's drip?" Right? Because I hear my son talking and saying shit all the time, and he speaks like that. And I know you speak like that. You're hip.
I got my ear to the streets.
You sure do. They don't say ear to the streets anymore, though. Sure? They say you're busy to the fizzy or something.
I had a mid-40s man tell me when I was walking out of the gym today that I look like a hoodlum.
Yep.
A hoodlum. When's the last time you heard that word? A hoodlum.
Is that guy 55? Like, you look like a hoodlum.
Get out of my yard. But yeah, right. So maybe we'll do a little book review. And I do have the card rides coming. So I got a little 10-minute podcast coming in. So that'll be fun. And then maybe me and you will hit the streets, do a little car ride, we won't drink and drive though. Maybe I'll call my boy Erman and he could drive us while we do a podcast.
We're going to hit the streets, old school.
I think this is, we had a good podcast last week, but I think we're 2 for 2. I think we're on a roll.
Yeah, this was a good one.
This is, and shout out to Nicole. She stuck with us the whole time. Constant comments. And for the people who are just listening and not viewing, we do this on Facebook Live. So if you have comments, questions, things like that, log on Facebook Live.
By the way, if you watch this later on, go ahead and put your toxic trait in the comment section.
Next week, not now, because
that way everybody you're friends with will know your toxic trait. And the reason I tell you that, is if you're aware of it, it helps.
It won't be toxic anymore.
Yeah, well, that's how you deal with toxic trait. You got to deal with it head on. If you don't admit the problem, you're not going to solve the problem.
Listen, you can't change without changing, my friend.
Right?
Look at the gems we drop around here. It's for you guys. Vin Provenzano, change of plans. We got Joey A over here drinking out of his goblet for the people who are watching. And if you guys want to start a GoFundMe page, do so for Joe so we can get some rocks glasses. We have to up the budget on this podcast.
Yeah, it might be time. It might be time to step things up.
Maybe some corks, because my man likes to leave bottles uncorked around here, so we just drink dusty liquor.
Yeah, that was my bad. I earlier today I see a cork on the table here, and I thought, what is this cork for? And there's bottles on the table, obviously. That's what we're drinking. And I didn't make the connection that the corkless bottle and the cork in my hand might have a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, but that just means my tequila bottle was uncorked since last week.
Yeah.
That is gross.
Yeah.
I can't, Joe. I'm going to cry. That one will make me cry. You guys have a good night.
I knew he would break them.